I feel like I've run a second marathon. Really, it's really been exhilarating and exhausting simultaneously. Exhilarating because of the people and the cause. Exhausted because of the pace and the age that I'm getting to.
It's wonderful to see the people in the convoy coming together. That's what I've gotten most out of this trip, was seeing all of the Gold Star families especially. And I didn't realize there were going to be so many Gold Star wives in the convoy, and Vietnam era at that. And I never expected to run into another me. And that's been, for me, not difficult, but strange, because during the Vietnam era, Gold Star, I mean, you hid your pin, and if you put a flag in the window, someone would have thrown a rock through it. So we didn't really get out there the way they are today, which is kind of a shame, but it was just the times. And one of the reasons why I wanted to come on this journey was because my former in-laws were never recognized in any way. And I wanted to do this for them, to help honor their son. I had a tree tagged in the tipland up at Wreaths of America on December 7th, because that was the day that my first husband and I got married. So I thought it was an appropriate day to tag a tree for him. And we got married, and then we went to Hawaii immediately, and he was stationed with the 25th Infantry Division, and he volunteered to take what they used to call a shotgun platoon. They were door gunners on helicopters, and he went to Vietnam, and he volunteered for that mission. And this was early on in 1965, so it was before the division went over as a big unit. And he was killed a week before he was supposed to come back. Well, he was just starting the out processing, but he had not gotten the orders to leave Vietnam. So as he was walking by the unit, they were getting ready to take some Vietnamese Rangers to the front. And my husband was a U.S. Army Ranger. So he looked at the guy that was a door gunner that day, and he said, "Hey, Chip," he said, "I'm going to ride one more time." And he got on the chopper in place of this other person. And they went to the front, and he was killed. So I didn't find that out till quite a few years after the fact. That was not revealed to me in the beginning, that he had actually taken somebody off the flight and gotten in his place. But that young man had a tough time with post-traumatic stress because of the fact that he realized that he could have been on the chopper that day. But he was killed instantly by hostile ground fire when the choppers went down to drop the Vietnamese Rangers, so he didn't suffer. And things were so different back then. When the body came back, there was no flag on the coffin. It just came into the airport, and I went down, and a friend of ours, a mutual friend, who had been a neighbor, went to Vietnam and escorted the body back, but it was not a flag-draped coffin like they have today. And they brought it back to California. That's where I went. And you were immediately moved out of your quarters. I was notified at 4 o'clock on a Saturday morning. There was a memorial service at the unit on Monday at 11 o'clock, and the Packers were at my door at 1. And Tuesday I was on the plane and gone. It was very fast. They don't do that today. Today it's quite different. A Gold Star wife can stay in her quarters if she's on an Army installation for 1 year now. It's hard to make a decision what you're going to do for the rest of your life, in a few days.
And you're grieving.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no time for that process.
It's more than grief, you're in shock.
Yeah.
Initially.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't even cry at first, because there's so many things that you have to do. Your mind is just whirling, arrange for the funeral. And I had to notify my in-laws. I had to call them from Hawaii and tell them on the phone. That was the single hardest thing I have ever had to do. And today especially, there were a lot of there was one couple in particular where the husband was there. A lot of times you don't see the fathers. It's the mothers that come to the ceremonies. I think the dads have a really hard time expressing their emotions or holding back their emotions to get through some of these ceremonies. I know my former father-in-law was like that, very quiet, didn't say anything. It was my mother-in-law that did most of the talking. But I saw their ghost today when I saw the one young couple at the end, and after the ceremony was over, I did go up and hug him and hug her and tell them, you know, why I kept looking over at them. They went through a box of Kleenex this afternoon during the ceremony, but I kept seeing my in-laws, my former in-laws there.
Yeah.
You know, they never had a chance to be recognized. It just wasn't the way it was done back then. So it's wonderful to see it today. Wonderful to see the recognition for the Gold Star families.
Have we gotten any better as a country in recognizing and honoring our Vietnam veterans?
Oh, definitely. Yes. But it took another war to wake ourselves up. But I'm very proud to see how my fellow veterans, Vietnam veterans, are the ones leading the way at the airports and seaports and wherever, and then going out to the schools and passing lessons learned, not just in the war, but in peace and the other battlefields of life. So we're passing those lessons on to the next generation as veterans, as former warriors, and as peacemakers today.
I think sometimes civilians don't realize that the casualties of war go beyond the battlefield. You know, you have, like Roger was talking about, Mrs. Alamo, when she was given the news that her husband was killed, she went into premature labor and lost the baby. So that's a casualty of war. He had 2 men on his team that were killed, and both their wives were pregnant.
And we're going to end up in Arlington.
Yes,
There's
one's
a
buried
great-
with his father at Arlington.
My youngest man who was killed, his wife, Alice, gave birth to twins. So Sergeant John Houston, is on one side of this headstone, John Houston Jr. on the other side. So George, the surviving twin, has told Norma and I didn't lose this daddy in Vietnam, I lost my brother also. As Norma just said, the casualties of war go far beyond the battlefield. And that's what when we're focusing on Gold Star wives and family, those are casualties of war. Those wounds are invisible, some of them, most of them. They need constant care, and that's what's been happening through Wreaths Across America. It's a little more salve on the wound. It doesn't have to happen any specific sequence or cycle. It happens that we're doing this around Christmas time every year now. This will continue on and continue to grow. So I know the Worcester's family dream is that this will go on so that one time in the future every single veteran's grave will be recognized and showed respect. It's 53 years ago this month. I was overwhelmed. I was certainly proud to be in the East Room with Mother and all my brothers and sisters and all my teammates, all surviving teammates. There's 10 of us there. Mentioning 10, Mother was a mother of 10. Mother knew war also. Her brother, Uncle Eddie, served in World War I, just as my daddy served in World War I. And Uncle Eddie was gassed in World War I. So Mother knew, and I remember even thinking about in the White House. So we stood there in this beautiful setting, reflecting upon other members of our family who have served. Daddy and Uncle Eddie, all 4 older brothers have served. My cousins have served in various services. So, in fact, as I sit here, Norma and I were just commenting recently, this year marks the 100th year of Donlons serving in active duty in the United States of America. And as we sit here today, I have a niece, grandniece, and grandnephew serving in the U.S. Navy. So 4 generations of continuous service.
100 years of continuous service.